Welcome to this educational module. We would like to share some practical tips to help you move better.
If you're having problems with turns, this video will review why you're having problems with turns and unsteadiness. And then it's going to discuss things that you can do to help improve your stability and improve your ability with turns. What is causing problems with your turns? There's a lot of contributing factors. One of them is how you position your feet, and we'll go over that in detail. If you're not paying attention when you're turning, sometimes your feet don't move the way you need for them to and can cause some instability. Rushing can definitely make you less steady when you're turning because there's greater momentum and that throws your balance off. If you're pivoting, you have a more narrow base of support and that can throw your balance off. Dual tasking, doing something else when you're turning, can affect your balance and can affect your turns. Freezing, the stutter step that you have, can throw you off balance, and just by repositioning your feet a little differently can help you reduce your freezing, and we'll go over that. Having your feet too close together when you're turning, you have a smaller base of support that can affect your balance, and we'll review that as well. We're going to start out with how to position your feet. Normally, when you're making a turn, you have an outside foot and you have an inside foot. When you're making your turn, the outside foot should always lead ahead of the inside foot. This is a video just showing this, where the outside foot is going to pass the inside foot when you're turning. So bigger step with that outside foot. It always passes that inside foot. Going the other way, now the other foot's on the outside. Bigger step with the outside foot. And that keeps you more stable. With Parkinson's, the outside foot tends to lag behind. So when it lags behind, this foot keeps turning and can cause instability. So we need to, when we're turning, focus on the outside foot. Here we're going to take a look at an individual making a left turn and a right turn. And I want you to take a look and compare, see the difference between the two sides. So here she's making a left turn, the right foot's lagging behind. The steps are underscaled, they're shorter on the right side because she couldn't step around as well. So to me, that's an indication that the Parkinson's is affecting the right foot because the steps are smaller. Now, let's take a look at the right turn. The left foot's taking better steps coming around. So the Parkinson's is not affecting the left side as much as the right side. So that's an indication to me that the left side is not as involved with the Parkinson's because she's able to take larger steps on the left side when she comes around. If it's easier turning in one direction, for her it's easier to turn toward the right. She may end up habitually making right turns without even knowing about it because it's just easier. But always making right turns doesn't make you very adaptable. So it's good to practice both right turns and left turns so you're flexible given the situation. After observing her in therapy, we discussed what she could do to help improve her turns. So one of the things we focused on was taking a bigger step with her right foot, and turning in general may require more of her conscious effort. And then also improving her weight shift to allow her to take that bigger step. But sometimes just taking a bigger step can help improve your weight shift. So this is a video of before we reviewed everything. That right foot's lagging behind. And then now, just literally a few minutes later, this is how she presented. Bigger step with the right foot, big improvement, and it just required her to know what to do to help her turns improve. It will still require some conscious effort, but at least now she knows how to correct it. We've been talking about the outside foot up till now, but now I just want to quickly go over what to do with your inside foot. So you're stepping around. This is in slow motion so you can see what's happening. And then you pivot around with the inside foot. Step around, the outside foot's passing the inside, and then you pivot that inside foot. Step around. This is good for smaller spaces. And let's say you're turning away from a counter, you would pivot that inside foot and then step around with the outside foot. If you're one of those people that rushes, this slide is for you. Here we have a picture of a person walking, but let's say they're rushing and they end up tripping on something. The direction you're going to lose your balance is forward. This arrow indicates your momentum going forward. The faster you're rushing, the bigger this arrow is going to be, the greater the momentum. So if you trip on something and the faster you're rushing, you're going to have greater momentum in your fall. Same scenario, you're entering the turn, and the more you're rushing, the greater the centrifugal force is pulling you sideways. The faster you go, the bigger the arrow, the greater the chances you're going to lose your balance sideways. So if there's one thing you can do to help yourself be more stable when you're turning, is to reduce the amount of rushing. For some people, they just need to be aware that rushing makes them unstable, but I've found it challenging in general for individuals who are rushers. That's just part of their nature to try and not rush. For those individuals who frequently fall because they are rushing, there may be an indication perhaps they would benefit from an assistive device, and that should be discussed with the physical therapist to help sort out if they can control their rushing at all, or do you really need an assistive device or not. Another thing that makes people unstable when they're turning is if you have a narrow base of support. So if your feet are close together, it's easier to be destabilized with the centrifugal force when you're turning. Also, one of the main muscle groups in your hips, your hip abductors, they help control your sideways balance. If those muscles are weak when you make a turn and when you're rushing, then you can lose your balance more easily. So strengthening those muscles will be advantageous. Sometimes talking to your physical therapist and seeing what things you need to do specific for you to help you with your balance sideways when you're turning would be beneficial. We just talked about narrow base turns adding to instability when you're turning. Well, pivotal turns are narrow base turns. So here's a video that is demonstrating a pivotal turn. Pivot turns are typically two-step turns, and here this individual is pivoting even on their toes, which even makes the base of support even less, and as a result of narrow base, they're losing their balance sideways. Remember when we were taking a quick turn, the centrifugal force pulls you sideways. And then here's a little bit more of a distant view, a pivotal turn. Instead of stepping, this person is using their arms to help rebalance themselves. So there's one thing you can do to reduce the pivoting type of turn, and that is adding 2 steps to your turn. So pivotal turns are typically like 2-step turns. If you add 2 more steps to that, that can help get you out of the pivoting habit. So here's just an example of just a pivot turn. So it's a 2-step turn. Now we're going to add 2 steps.
1, 2, 3, 4.
That just adds to the stability of the turn. That's something you can try. Now this is an example of a wide base turn, completely stable. The person's not rushing. So that is optimal. But wide base turns aren't practical in the home. Typically they're smaller turns. So if you're in your home and you have the opportunity to make a little bit of a wider turn, that might help with your stability. This is some homework you can do to practice left and right turns. And what you do is you walk in a figure of 8. And the reason you do the figure of 8 is because at one end you'll be doing left turns and the other end you'll be doing right turns. So you are able to practice both directions, and that makes you more adaptable. Here's a video of that. So you can put some cones down. You can just take some plastic glasses, turn them upside down, and practice narrow turns, wide turns. You can practice bigger step with the outside foot. You can practice turning the inside foot. So there's lots of things you can do by just working on the figure of 8. Some people have a very narrow base of support, and when you have a very narrow base of support, it's difficult to unweight one foot to take a step. It's also easy, any kind of weight shift to one way or the other, you could lose your balance. So here's just an example of what a narrow base of support looks like. You can't take any big steps because you can't shift your weight enough. If you shift your weight enough, you're going to lose your balance. So typically with these people, they need a walker for balance and to enable them to shift their weight far enough to unload that one foot so they can take a bigger step. So this is another scenario with turning. You're dual tasking, you're doing two things, you're carrying something, you're thinking about what you're carrying, and you twist around to make a turn, but your feet aren't moving. And as a result, you get unsteady. So as an alternative, what you could do is you're carrying something, think about your feet and not what you're carrying, and then that way you can lead with your feet to make your turn, and that will make you more stable. In summary, you want to take bigger steps with your outside foot. If that outside foot is lagging, that can cause instability. Your feet require more of your attention to move better. So if you're in a situation where your environment is more busy and hectic, just remember that to pay attention to your feet more so that they cooperate. Avoid pivoting or rushing. It's very destabilizing, and if you can reduce the amount that you pivot or the amount that you rush, you'll be more steady. Make a wider turn if and when possible. It's just more stable. Increase your weight shift. Now, there's a lot of factors that contribute to people's inability to weight shift sufficiently. I've encountered some individuals who have a lot of arthritis, painful arthritis in their ankle, their knee, or their hip. So they tend to avoid shifting their weight to that side, and that can cause problems. For those people, you may want to use a cane or a walker to take the weight off of the painful side to allow you to shift your weight better. Lead with your feet, not your shoulders, when carrying something and turning. That will make you more stable. If you're doing more than one thing, such as dual tasking, your feet may need more of your attention. High repetition of practice can help your muscle memory and reduce your attention demand when dual tasking. Thank you.